The knee is the most commonly injured joint in the whole of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and the real struggle with this is just how much of an impact it has on men off the mats, whether that be family life, whether that be just general day-to-day movement, or their ability to work and actually make money. Real problematic stuff. And I always say to everybody, your knees are your life, you should look after them, right? And if we want to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the rest of our lives, we have to understand that injuries are inevitable. And if the knee is the most commonly injured joint, there is no doubt at some point we're going to get a knee injury, right? And yeah, could we do a little bit more to prevent that? Yes, absolutely. Could we be more professional in what we do after the knee injury happens? That is exactly what I'm going to be talking about in this video. I'm going to use my current client approach to really bring to life what we do and how we get over these issues really quickly on my one-on-one program. But I really want you to take this approach away, right? Because I genuinely believe what I'm saying, and this is why I'm showcasing what I do with my one-on-one clients. Give it to you as well, because it's fucking powerful stuff, right? I believe in what I'm saying. I've got the proof that it works. So use it and do it and reap the rewards. If we want to do it for the rest of our lives, that is. However, if you don't want to do it for the rest of your lives, then, find somebody else to, make you weaker. But that's not what we do on this channel. Use this approach too, right? And you're thinking, what approach? I work with grapplers, all shapes and sizes, and sometimes they get injured on the mats. Sometimes they come to me with these injuries, and the approach is fairly similar, right? But usually it's a mindset problem underlying. They've just neglected the strength of their joints for so long. But this video hopes to just spark a little light in your head and just be like, right, okay, I can do this, right? So the first thing that you shouldn't do, obviously this is a video about what you should do and exactly how I approach my clients who message me, they don't message me like that. Hey, jiu-jitsu finger. When they message me on a morning, saying they've got injured from, crazy white belt has tried to sweep them, and yeah, their knee's fucked. But what you should not do is important. Arguably more important, right? And I say the word disconnect. What I mean by disconnect is outsource the feeling of your knee to some chemicals in a little tub that costs about $1 or £1. What you shouldn't do is take painkillers, and you shouldn't take anti-inflammatories. You shouldn't do ice. You shouldn't wear compression gear. You shouldn't do all of these things. You need to take a real moment to connect fully to the injury. Where is the pain exactly? Because how can you identify where the pain is exactly when you're numbed up on painkillers, taking anti-inflammatories, iced, all of this stuff? You can't connect if you're taking disconnecting measures. So hopefully you've put that to one side and be like, right, okay, I understand. I need to connect, right? I need to exactly identify a couple of things. So I get a text on a morning saying, I'm having a meltdown. Oh my God, jiu-jitsu is going so good this week. Okay, let's take a breath and just point to me exactly where the pain is, right? In this case, it was on the inside of his knee. He doesn't need to go and see a physiotherapist. He doesn't need to get a scan. He doesn't need to do surgery. He just needs to take a breath. Don't disconnect. Connect to exactly where the pain is and point to it. Send me a picture. In this case, I'm thinking two things. It's either MCL or it's either meniscus, right? Just off the location of injury. But it's not enough yet, because he still needs to tell me the next thing. He needs to explain to me the exact situation that occurred in as much detail. So I want this raw, fresh off the press. Tell me the situation. And when he did tell me the situation, he was quite emotional, clearly frustrated at the training partner that, kind of caused this. But again, it's inevitable. We do a fucking combat sport, lads. Do you know what I mean? So it's important that we go, okay, right, these things happen. He's not a dickhead. He's just, not as technical as I am. It is what it is, right? But again, we are fully in control of what we do next. the situation, right? Understanding the movement that happened will either clarify that it's the MCL or the meniscus, or rule it out. In this case, it was pretty evident, right? It was after he explained the situation and how that the other training partner tried to scissor sweep him, which basically pushed his knee inwards, but he tried to scissor sweep him through the knee. He didn't chop, at the. Basically, it was an absolute disaster of a situation. Anyway, also, you got the exact situation that happened. He explained his symptoms. So he said, my knee is swollen, right? And he mentioned pain, current pain. Meniscus doesn't really swell, right? Because swelling comes from a high blood flow ligament. So I need you to understand this, and I'll go into detail about this in a sec. So when I'm thinking this thing in my head, I tell him the information instantly. I'm like, mate, look, this is the crack. There is swelling because of this. You're pointing to this. As soon as he said there's swelling and he pointed to the inside of his knee, 9 times out of 10 that's MCL, right? Because the meniscus doesn't have very much blood flow. It causes a lot of pain, but it doesn't have much blood flow. And now if he pointed to the other side of his knee, which is the LCL, that doesn't have much blood flow, it doesn't have much pain. But just because it doesn't have pain doesn't mean it's not a problem. And opposite to that, just because it's in pain doesn't mean it's a very, very serious problem, right? Anyway, I nearly went off on a tangent there about fucking pain in the different parts of the joint. Just understand, right, the knee. You've got the ACL and the PCL, which are right in the middle somewhere. On the inside, you've got the MCL, which is high blood flow and high pain, which is fucking great for repair and regeneration, by the way, and gaining strength as fast as possible. And then on the outside, you've got the LCL. The LCL's low blood flow, and it takes fucking ages to recover the LCL. The MCL is quite a quick turnaround. The ACL and the PCL are pretty straightforward. However, we've got the meniscus as well. The meniscus is low blood flow and it requires a bit of a different approach. But for the most part, whatever ligament it is, outside, inside, meniscus, it requires a similar approach at the start and probably halfway through as well. And I'm going to talk about exactly that. So I've educated you there. Basically, the ligament's job is to restrict movement, right? Meniscus is shock absorbers of the knee. So if he said to me, when I take a step, it hurts, and when I place my foot down, it hurts, that's probably going to be the meniscus, because the meniscus, is that shock absorber. Anyway, so I give him a little bit of an education to help him calm himself down, and I've looked at his program, his training program, what he's currently on immediately, and I've said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take deep knee bends out for a little bit. I'm going to make you earn the right to progress to deep knee bends. What I mean by that is exercises like a full range of motion squat, just for maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, until I've seen his knee move safely. So in this case, he was on heels elevated goblet squats to build the strength of his knees. And he was also doing a deep Smith machine back squat. Again, full range of motion at the knee joint. And what I did is I took them out, and exercise priority number 1 was a chair sit hold, which I had him basically leaning against the wall and trying to build up to 90-degree knee bend. So I basically, in this, because I wanted to know the severity at this point, I wanted to know if he could go down eventually and build up to 30 seconds to 45-second holds, leaning against the wall. Anyway, if you want to research chair sit holds, just have a look on YouTube. There's plenty of videos on chair sit holds. But how to build strength immediately. You have to hold your hands up and say, look, okay, something's happened. My joint is now weak. Just take it on the chin. My joint is now weak. And the action plan for the improvements without causing any further damage is take out deep knee bends for the time being, or regress deep knee bends to the point where you're doing it bodyweight. But I don't do that on the first session. I want him to train today. Like literally, if he told me that injury there, I'd be like, right, okay, tonight I want you to do this exercise. That's how quick we need to start building strength. And people don't do that. People have a week's rest, 2 weeks rest, 3 weeks rest. And that's why I'm able to get 3 weeks of results, because I'm getting the lads training instantly with these injuries. But we're doing it safely, obviously. We're not being stupid. We're doing it safely. So one of the things I love to do instantly is get the blokes on my program doing isometric holds, right? And as I say, the chair sit hold is perfect for this, because you can control the amount of bend the knee has. Control the amount of, and the goal is to incrementally increase range of motion as the symptoms allow. So like I've said there, progress as symptoms allow. Once he gets to 90 degrees, absolutely awesome, because if he's able to hold a 90 degree chair sit hold for 30 seconds to 45 seconds, he can now do a bodyweight squat, more than likely pain-free, if he's got good control. And then if he can do a bodyweight squat, then cool, we can progress to a heels elevated bodyweight squat. So he's now getting full range of motion knee bend. At a point, his full range of motion is pain-free. Now we can start adding load, and then a lot more load, and then we can enter the end stage stuff, which is the final part. Hopefully you appreciate that and just how simple the process is, because doctors and physios will tell you it's complicated to keep taking your money off you. It's not complicated. The reason it's complicated is because people disconnect from the injury, and then 6 months goes down the line, and people don't really even have a freaking clue how the injury happened, and they don't have a clue what the symptoms are, because they're that fucking off the trolley on painkillers. Do you know anybody, right? Do you know anybody that had an injury, that didn't deal with it, that took a painkiller, that got probably addicted to painkillers? A couple of years pass, they take a stronger painkiller because the injuries got worse, so the pain gets worse, they take a stronger painkiller. Pain gets worse, stronger painkiller. And now they're fucking addicted to the strongest possible painkillers going. The pain was never the problem. The pain is a response to the problem. This is how we address it. We don't panic, we concentrate, and we build strength immediately. And you would not believe how fast this turnaround is. So, how to build strength immediately, right? Your ligaments understand this. Your ligaments absolutely love load. Whether there's a little bit of a tear in one, who cares? Load your knees, right? And the safest way to do this is isometrically. And you find, literally, I'm going to show you, right? Because it's so simple for me to do. Look, let's just say, fuck's sake, man, this is an absolute disaster. This is an absolute disaster. Right, here we are. Look, I'm going to show you my knees. Phil, this is an absolute disaster. There we go. Right, so I'm here. Or I can start here. See how it's perfect for just creating progressive range of motion. And I will stay here. They're injured, and I'm like, they record their footage, they will send me their footage, and I'm like, cool. And I was like, how did that feel? Was there any pain? And they're looking at the knee and they're like, nah, that felt alright, that. And then the next session, they might bring it down to 90 degrees. After that, do you understand? Hopefully you understand that. I can't believe I showed you, and I had an absolute meltdown doing so with my... Anyway, let's make myself a little bit smaller. So this is a simple way very safe way of loading your ligaments, right? Because remember, the beauty of isometric training, doing holds, is that you get to stress the tendon and ligament, but so you're increasing the blood flow, but you're not changing the size of it. So you're not actually creating chance of further injury. It's absolute gold dust, right? I always talk about isometrics, but isometrics are actually a curse, because people get pain-free so fast from isometrics, they end up leaving and thinking they're absolute hero. A couple of weeks later, oh, I've got no pain, I'm all of a sudden strong as fuck again, I'm like Wolverine. Nah, mate, your joints are still weak, you're literally going to get a reoccurring injury if you don't do the extra bits. Most people don't be most people. Find your pain-free start point, and I always say to the lads, the pain isn't the problem, it's just a response to the problem, so don't really be afraid of pain. obviously don't fucking ruin your knees, because use it as a guide. So you want to flirt on the line of pain. You find the pain and you're like, okay, I'll just ease off ever so slightly. So you're literally on the line of where the pain is, because the pain guides exactly where the tear is. Do you know what I mean? It's information. Pain is information, right? So you've identified your new baseline. What I mean by this is the exact knee angle, the exact joint angle that brings on a little bit of pain. And then you're like, cool, this is my start point. So, and then you've potentially identified how much load you can do as well. I would always, just because I like to be on the side of caution initially, because I don't know how severe it is. So because I don't know how severe it is, and I haven't told them to go and get a scan or go and get surgery straight away, I'm like, let's just err on the side of caution here. Do it body weight, do holds, and we're just going to progress. If they don't progress, if the symptoms don't progress within a week or so, then absolutely scan, then, whatever else comes of that. However, it's never happened. It's never happened because thankfully they didn't have a full rupture, but most issues can be resolved with non-surgical interventions. And that's a very sad statistic. I'm talking like 90+%. I think like 95% of surgeries could have been sorted out. And it's just the ruptures that sometimes, well, I say more often than not, need surgery. Anyway, most issues are not ruptures, and they can be sorted quickly if you get this right and you treat this properly. Increase the range of motion as symptoms allow. So as you get stronger and as more blood flow goes to these ligaments and tendons, the pain's going to drop so fast. So fast, especially that you're not moving the joint angle. So the blood is going straight to the injured area for that 30-second, 45-second hold. And you're going to repeat that 3 to 5, maybe 10 times a day. You wouldn't believe how fast the benefits are. It's mind-blowing. Like, it's way better than any painkiller because you're actually getting stronger as well. But progress that strength. Don't just sit doing holds for the rest of your life. Pathetic. Increase the load once pain-free full range is achieved. So like I said earlier on, it was like getting it to 90 degrees, then we can start squatting, yeah? Once we can start squatting to 90 degrees, cool, maybe a session or two of that, then we're going to raise the heels, because most blokes don't have good ankle mobility, have good hip mobility. We still want full knee bend. So we use the squat, or a variation of a squat, to get full knee bend, so that you can actually go all the way down, or build up to going all the way down. And then we start adding load, and then we start adding more load. And we're not happy with just a little bit of bodyweight training and then going back on the mats and going, well, hey, I'm injury free again. If you want to conduct yourself like an amateur, you're literally going to be in and out of these problems for the rest of your life. So this is a great point that I remembered to say is, yes, your knee might be injured, but don't just get fixated on the knee. Don't get like tunnel visioned. Use this time as a few weeks, a couple of months, as a period just to strengthen your joints. And don't get fixated on the knee. Strengthen the rest of your joints as well. Not just your knees, your shoulders, your lower back, your elbows. Get some muscle on your frame. I always say, if you're injured, prioritize lifting. If you're not injured, prioritize jiu-jitsu. But you should always do both. Yeah? Should always do both. Okay. I mean this when I say this, right? Remember, if you do this, if you do them holds 3 to 5, sometimes 10 times a day, and you do them properly, where you're flirting on the edge of pain, 30 seconds to 45 seconds, you will become, and you'll follow that progression of incrementally increase the range of motion until that range of motion is pain-free. You don't change it every set. You stick to one range of motion, one knee angle for one day, and then the next day you might progress it slightly as symptoms allow. If you follow that and you train fast, as soon as you got injured, like that night, or maybe the day after, at the latest, you do that, you'll become pain-free so fast. Just because you're pain-free doesn't mean that you're strong or resilient. So remember, the pain's not the problem. The pain was a response to the problem. The pain is information, right? The main difference of all of these, you can point to different parts of your knee, but the actual main difference is, because everything that I said there regarding achieving full knee bend, progressing the range of motion as symptoms allow, that is all the same on every single one of these. The only difference is the end stage, and don't skip the end stage stuff, right? So for the ACL and the PCL, they're exactly the same. Basically strength, power and speed and agility. And I know you're probably laughing thinking, me doing agility, me doing speed. That mentality is going to keep your ACL and PCL injured. Why not? Doesn't matter how old you are, you should be training your strength, power and speed. Because then your ACL and your PCL, you know what I mean? What if you slip? If you slip in the kitchen, do you know what I mean? That absorption of force, that change of direction. Or playing with your grandkids or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to train power, speed and agility. Why? You only need to do a few weeks of it at the end of your rehab. Don't frown upon it when at the end of the day you build the foundation, and all of this comes afterwards. It's going to be great. LCL and MCL, they're the ones on the outside. Horizontal forces are what you need for the MCL and the LCL and the MCL. Just remember that the LCL is a very tricky one because it doesn't actually produce that much pain. It's actually a very misleading ligament. You know, it's like, it doesn't feel like it's injured. It is fucking, honestly, if these two go, your knee can shift. So I say this from experience, and one of the clients I'm currently working with, he had an LCL tear, and if the LCL goes, your knee can click out of place, but it doesn't hurt that much. So it's a tricky one to manage. But shearing forces, you basically need to put horizontal forces through the knee at the end game with strategic horizontal forces through the knee. And then you've got the menisci, which is the only difference from the menisci to ACL PCL is that you avoid deep knee flexion at the start. And I do that anyway. Do you know what I mean? So you should too, and progress literally every week, have the intention that I'm training the strength of my knees. I will try progress the time which I'm doing a hold, or the extra reps of the bodyweight squat, or the additional load of the heels elevated goblet squat. Intention to gain strength, because without strength, none of this extra stuff happens. Take it seriously. So there's the progression. I've mentioned this a few times. Just don't stop getting strong. Use it as a point to go, all right, okay, lesson learned. I need to start getting in the gym again. More importantly, use moments like this in your life, these little hurdles, as moments to raise your standards. Gentlemen, that's my approach. That's exactly how I respond to clients that message me when something crazy went down on the mats. If you want this level of support, then the link is in the description to jump on a call with me and we can discuss your strategy on the longevity program. See you tomorrow.